Welcome back and welcome to our media panel, media commentator Brian Edwards and listener columnist Bill Ralston. There was a very interesting story in the Otago Daily Times this week. On page 15, it reported that the multi-billion-dollar Harvard Fund had increased its already substantial dairy holdings in Otago, making it one of the biggest landowners in the area. The ODT was the first to report this story, and for a while, no other outlet touched it. A few days later, Radio New Zealand National picked it up, but the coverage has been nothing like that of the Crayford Farms sale to a Chinese buyer.
The Overseas Investment Office has cleared a Harvard University-owned investment company, Dairy Farms Partnership, to buy another farm in Otago's Maniapoto district.
Gentlemen, what do you make of this?
Well, it was interesting. There was Winston Peters finally put out a press statement about it, criticising the sale. Then the New Zealand Herald Saturday edition picked it up on page 16 in a shortish story. But I don't think editors are running for Harvard acquiring or American interests acquiring land in New Zealand simply because the public don't react in quite the same way than if it was a Chinese buyer. Simple as that.
That's why this criticism is that whether the media is racist.
Yeah, well, that's right. The central issue here really is that we don't seem to mind Australians buying our land or Canadians buying our land or Americans. Even the French were not too bothered by them buying our land. But we don't like the idea of the Asians buying our land. And so this has produced a comment which came particularly from Cameron Slater on whale oil, that this shows we're racist. You know, we're obviously racist. I think that's misguided, actually. My feeling is that we are xenophobic, really, which conveys the idea that we're uncomfortable with all of this. You know, we're a bit nervous about it all. And I think that's really what's going on here. And there was a survey done recently about this, and it actually showed essentially that the closer we are in culture, in language, and even in the way we look to a country, the more comfortable we are with them buying our land. So we're quite happy for the Aussies because they're the same as us. But if you're not the same as us, if you've got a different language, you look different, your culture is different, ooh, we're a bit frightened.
Well, the point there is more than 55% of foreign investment in New Zealand is actually Australian investment. No one talks about the being overwhelmed by Australian investment.
We're seeing some great cartoons, haven't we, come out
well,
this week
yeah,
too?
I mean, you know, look, cartoonists know what editors know, and they know New Zealanders are paranoid about Chinese investment, so they're going to make the most of it.
The French thing is interesting, you see. Why don't we object to the French? And really it's because they come from the same language group as us, although they speak French. So all those things go together. And if the more people are like us, the happier we are for them to come and buy our land.
I guess it's just a simple thing, isn't it? When a nation turns up and they speak Mandarin, we don't kind of understand how we're going to be able to communicate with them in everyday life.
They're also scary because they're huge. I mean, there are 1.4 billion Chinese. What are there? There's 400 and what's our population? 4.5 million here, you know. So they're pretty scary, really. And also, I think New Zealanders have a feeling to some extent that we already have too many Asians here. You get all that stuff about Queen Street and how many Asians you see.
The weird thing is, you know, Harvard are just buying existing land. You know, they're not actually creating more employment or anything else, or they're not actually building more infrastructure. But of course, the Chinese investors that have come into New Zealand are building milk and dairy plants all over the show. So they're actually adding to the value of the country, yet they get the flack.
So there was not a lot of coverage about that this week. There has been a lot of coverage, though, about Parekura Horomia and his death and his tangi. And we've seen it pretty much wall-to-wall across the mainstream television networks, haven't we?
Well, we've seen it on Maori television. We haven't seen it quite so much on TV1 and TV3.
Well, we've covered it a lot, but we've seen it covered differently in Maori TV.
Well, that doesn't really surprise me. I mean, why would one be surprised by that, really? That's what would be to be expected. I mean, I am not going to sit with the best will in the world and watch hours and hours and hours of coverage of a tangi. I'm not going to do that. And most Pakeha New Zealanders are not going to do that.
But in pure news terms, though, Maori Television Service have the advantage because they have Maori language speakers working in their basic news bulletins as well. They can get access to these people who are talking. They can understand what they're saying. We've got European reporters from TV3 and TVNZ at that tangi who can't understand virtually a single word.
Well, let's show an example of this because we have a clip from Maori TV. Let's have a look at it. And that shows, I think, when you speak Maori, how you can get a greater understanding of what's going on at a tangi. We also have a clip from our own coverage on TV3.
And that wasn't because I was the chief. He said that to everybody. Everybody was called Chief.
Almost the entire Labour caucus flew into Gisborne today on 2 specially arranged flights, and not just current MPs, old familiar faces as well.
Now, this is quite an issue, isn't it? Because if you speak Maori, you can get a greater understanding of what is going on in a situation like we're seeing at Tolaga Bay at the moment.
Yeah, true. I mean, what you're seeing with TV3's coverage and TVNZ's coverage is a focus on wider issues, the arrival of politicians and things like that the general audience can focus on. One of the things I found hardest when I was at TVNZ was trying to get Maori reporters, and particularly Maori language reporters, into the 6 o'clock news stream. Simply because they preferred to work within the Maori unit, within the Maori language programs, and most of all, the best Maori talent went to MTS.
Well, that's very interesting because we did some training with Maori broadcasters at TVNZ. They were just absolutely wonderful. They were keen, they were grounded, they were marvellous young people. Where are they? What do you say?
Well,
I think if you really want to cover Maori issues and then and do it how you want to, then if you look at an issue like Waitangi, I mean, Maori TV will go categorically, they get inside the issues, whereas mainstream television will generally focus on the scuffles. That's the reality.
Well, that's right, because once again, editors and producers know that the public mood is more likely to get into a fight, an argument and conflict. Conflict lies at the centre of European Pākehā journalism, not necessarily the case in the terms of Maori journalism.
And that's a great pity because when you watch the Maori coverage, it is so culturally rich, it's so embracing and so warm towards that stuff, which we don't get at all.
OK. I want to just touch too on the rise of cooking shows. Let's have a taste of that.
Competition is fierce. I'm coming into the next challenge and I want it bad.
Can't say I watch them, but I don't know another woman who doesn't really, and a lot of the men as well. These are really popular.
I can't stand them. I hate them. I loathe them with every fibre in my body. They are just absolutely awful. And some years ago, I wrote a post about this on our website. I had the most abusive mail I've ever had about this. But there's so much. We are so obsessed with food, and it's not just on television. It's books. In the old days, if you wanted to write a book that was going to sell, you wrote a sports book. Not anymore. Now you write a cookbook.
But the important thing here is that they do rate, particularly the cooking contest shows, which are quite different from the older value sort of recipe type shows. 27 hours a week, I think, on mainstream television. These kind of cooking shows.
Isn't it?
But last week you complained on this show about X Factor that it was too cruel. The cooking shows, the ones you're talking about, they're even more cruel.
Look, the default channel at our home is the cooking, the food channel.
Okay. Gentlemen, time for brunch. Thank you.